We are in a G-Force influencer interview. I'm interviewing Jonathan Frederick. Jonathan, thank you for being with us today. Where are you joining us from?
Yeah, Brittany, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. We had a great time when you came on my podcast last year. I am coming to you guys from Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina.
Your Heart Healthy Hustle podcast is awesome. You interview purpose-driven entrepreneurs and really a lot of world changers. Specifically right now, I know you've interviewed a lot of doctors, health specialists, financial professionals. You're very in the know. And I know that you've told me that there's just never been anybody better after you've interviewed me for your podcast, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I really enjoyed doing our interview, and I'm super excited to have you on our show today. And we're talking about perspective. We're talking about we're still dealing with this virus situation. Life may never be the same again, but I believe this is time to find new opportunities. I believe that this is a time to change, to take this slower time to reset and pick, what do you really want to do with your life? How do you want to go back? How do you want to emerge from this crisis and this quarantine from? So I want to ask you, what do you think are the top opportunities in any category?
Time. I mean, we've been given the gift of time. Every excuse we can ever make always comes down to, oh, I don't have time for that right now, or I have other priorities. I have to take little Johnny to T-ball. I have to do this. I have to do that. Now you have all that time back to actually use for all the things that, so that to me is opportunity number one. That presents a litany of obstacles in and of itself, right? Because now you have to deal with, well, what do I focus on? And then a month's gone by. Oh, now we're in May. It's crazy. We were talking about this right before we started. It's insane how fast the days are going. And it's like Groundhog Day, except it's a month that goes by and you don't get that time back to do it again. So the number one opportunity for me right now is time.
So you have an extremely successful podcast, and it is called Heart Healthy Hustle. How did you even get into starting that?
So the reason, I appreciate you saying that. The reason I started my show was because I was broke in just about all areas of my life. And I knew, there had to be something I could do now, like in that situation, to improve my life and my situation, because I had goals to, serve for the greater good. And of course, taking care of myself is part of that. So understanding how to do that and realizing my ignorance, and I started learning, I started reading, I started the podcast really out of my love for knowledge and books and lessons I'd been learning from in-person mentors. And I saw a really almost like a writing on the wall opportunity with podcasting because, you get to talk to people who otherwise, you may not have the opportunity to cross paths in your day-to-day life because they're operating on the other side of the world. And the podcast is quite remarkable because it allowed me to connect with these people and these mentors and learn from these leaders such as yourself and connect and really talk about the life lessons that they have had thus far. I did it because I knew there had to be something that I could do now. Like I could purchase a $60 mic. I could send some emails and go through more rejection. Like I could do that because, like I said, just about all areas of my life were broke and I wanted out of that. I was sick of it. So pain.
Pain. Well, how did that same hustle that made you so successful in that venture of your life, how are you using that to navigate through this experience that we're all going through right now?
Like I said, the time thing was huge. Capitalizing on opportunities that are unique to this situation. I think what I've noticed is taking time to look out for others and serve is kind of like the number one. If you are getting windfalls, or some people in this mastermind or people you may know who you're connected with or have influence with may have received a not bailout, but some form of the PPP check or even a stimulus check, perhaps, given your income level, who knows? But that could reveal a lot to you about yourself, what you decide to do from there. I think unique opportunities, though, because we want things for ourselves too, right? Really ask with full faith. Like now, like I said before about the time, we have time now, right? Like now's the time to like kneel down. If you believe in God, like you need to be asking, take some time to ask God for what you want. Like, do you want a new car? Do you want like a new house? Like, what do you want? Do you want like ask him for that? Start writing out all the things that you actually want, even if you think it's selfish and why would I ask for that? That's so vain. Put it all on a list because you want it, you want it. So write it down and write down specific detailed things. By the time you get to 300, you're allowed to stop writing that list. For me,
Oh.
I'm still on like item 70 something. And what I'm encouraging listeners to do, you guys, is if you do this, you're going to find out that if you're like a God-fearing person, by the time you get to like item 50, 60, and 70, you'll start to realize like, okay, in order to, if I'm writing down that I want like this car and this situation in life and this level of income, also that I can, you know, enjoy my life and serve others and blah, 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 even all these selfish requests, you'll start to be like, okay, well then how do I get that? And then you'll be like, okay, I'm going to ask for like infinite divine level wisdom. I'm going to ask for amazing negotiation skills. I'm going to ask for the best connections I can possibly foster while I'm on earth. You know what I mean? You're going to start asking for the things that will actually yield those initial items that were at the surface of your brain. Like, oh, I want that motorcycle so bad. And then by like item 70 for me, I had a really interesting breakthrough and a weird conversation with God. And I just kind of sat back in my chair. And this sounds like esoteric and kind of woo-woo or whatever, but I felt God was saying to me directly, he was like, why do you want these? And it wasn't condemning. It wasn't like, how dare you ask for this? I'm enough. It wasn't like that. It was literally a loving question of, why do you want this? And I realized like, oh, like, you know, I don't really, like, I didn't really have an answer, but then I realized like the follow-up to that statement was, I'm enough. And I was like, oh, dang.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like
Huh?
that's all you need, you know? So there was something I read from a fellow podcaster, actually. I think his name was Sean West, and he posted something like, there's a difference between taking advantage of a crisis and capitalizing on an opportunity that's happening during a crisis, or something like that. Because there's some people, and I know that's not your circle or you who view it that way, but I think
Yeah.
some people, again, towards that victim side of things, may think like, oh, well, like, why are you trying to make money right now? It's like, it's so short-sighted, and that's not even the full picture. But that kind of to me was important because like you can't ever be ashamed of selling, you know, especially when it's giving back and you're serving and it's what's the driving engine for what's going to then serve more people, you know.
Uh, absolutely. You know, I believe in God, and I believe that God doesn't normally lightning bolt down resources. He always uses a vessel. And so if you want to be an answered prayer and you want to be able to take people in and help them, then you have to have resources.
Yeah.
Money, nothing more than an expansion tool for the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing more. So if you're afraid of it, if you're over spiritualizing, if you're being weird about it, if you're like judging other people, it's because you probably don't have any. It's probably because it controls you in some way. But if you look at it and say, it's kind of like a, whatever it touches, it expands. So you have to be very careful what you let it touch. And for me, God kind of burned the love of money off of my heart. The first 3 years, I struggled so hard. And it was like every time I went to get ahead, it would fall apart.
Mm.
Every time I almost went and took advantage of something, it would fall apart. And
Wow.
I had to truly be able to give with a pure heart and serve first,
Mm.
by giving first and loving first and like going
Yeah.
all out to just like bless somebody with a pure heart. It never came back through that person,
Yeah.
always came back
Yeah.
some other way, but my life
Yeah.
started going exponential
Mm.
through service. So
Mm.
it's interesting. Like, I prefer not to lose $1,000,000, but if you told me, Britnie, you made $1,000,000, I'd be like, awesome. And if you told me I lost $1,000,000, I'd be like, well, let's figure it out. But I'm not
Right.
going to have emotional reaction.
Mm.
The emotional tie to money was broken off of me for 3 years of just straight suffering between barely being able to survive, like paying my bills and
Yeah.
living in my car and working 18 to 21 hours a day. It was just a lot. And so you learn, it's not like we're living in a video game, but
Kind of.
I know, but you know, you're writing your book, the story of your life every day.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
when I get really stressed, I almost start writing from the future what I wish I was doing today, and then I would go do
mm.
it. And it's a weird
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah.
Like I never
Yeah.
shared. It's like future diary.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can write from the place of, I'm already out of that situation, and I wish I'd done this,
Yeah.
then it takes the stress off.
Woo.
More of
Yeah.
a game. It's more fun. So
And you just start crushing it typically. I love that. I'm going to interject because I feel the same way. I literally will remind myself on my planner. I have a couple different calendars, but this is one of them. And I'll put on like the top, I'll put a note sometimes like 10-year future self perspective. Just kind
yes,
of remind myself like, yo,
great.
like today doesn't matter as much as maybe
Right.
I'm letting it. Or is this going to matter in 5 years? No. Okay. Then stop thinking about it. Obviously 5 minutes of grieving. Cool. Like let's go forward. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that because one of the things I'm trying to implement, Britnie, right now is the same thing. And being that 10-year future version of myself at that point in my life, what would he do now? And how would he carry himself? How would he serve? How would he operate in the world? And I'm trying to do that. And I think what it does is it brings you to learning and discovery quicker. Uh,
Yes.
that's my theory.
No,
That's cool.
I would love to hear how you came across that, because I started thinking about that. I'd won some award in Nashville, and I was like 30 under 30 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And they said, if you could go back and give your 20-year-old self some advice,
Mm,
what would it be? And that was the first time I started thinking back about like 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And for the last 10 years at that time, my advice to myself would be, stop being so afraid.
mm-hmm.
You're always going to get through it. I'm pretty courageous in that, like, I'll still take the action, but I've done most of this with so much anxiety that I'll be so afraid every time I do these big things. But why? Why are we investing the energy in so much fear? Because God's never left me before. And we've always figured it out, no matter how bad it was. And worst case scenario, you die. Which we're all going to die eventually. So take the power away from that too. Just like worst case scenario, we're going to be okay. So if you know in your heart you're not going to roll over and quit,
Yeah.
then you have no reason to be afraid. And so I think that's when it first hit me. I'd love to ask you, when did you first start thinking of this almost like time gap?
Honestly, I'm not sure. It came from after I started my podcast. So it would have been in the last like year and a half. I had a guest on, Nicholas Barely, about I don't know, 7 months ago or so, and he said something like, basically an exercise you can do is he would like lay on the floor and not. He said like, I'm not getting up until I get a glimpse as to, like what I want my life to be in 20 years, I think. But for me, I've kind of stuck with that 10. And yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe a year or so.
Okay. So one of your filters is interviewing force for good entrepreneurs. Tell me, what are the top things that you have gained from having a podcast that has that kind of a filter? Like what are you learning? What are the common denominators about these people?
There's quite a few. The biggest thing for me has been you can work full time and take a position in entrepreneurship in doing force for good activities, right? You want to also come at business ownership from a foundation that's solid. And part of that economically is debt freedom. I'm not saying you can't learn to use debt for your investments and for developing things. That's different. But in the beginning, if you're coming into, I'm going to start a business and I have $50,000 of revolving credit that I have to pay off, you need to get a job. You need to pay all that off. And then you can start really being free to develop your business and your idea. I think in the meantime, though, like I did with this podcast, is things like start podcasting, start connecting with winners, start investing in yourself. People are always asking, you see YouTube videos like, how should I invest $1,000, $10,000? I'm like, people are looking for that. But the best advice that I found has been invest in yourself, because until you're actually at another level economically or financially, it's not going to make a big difference, to be honest. If you invest that 1,000 in yourself, that can get you quite a bit of advantages. That could be 100 books. That could be joining a mastermind. That could be going to events has been my number one thing. Investing in myself, like online courses, developing skills. So the biggest thing is really just there's no shortcut to any kind of success, and everyone's still figuring it all out, for sure.
That's a good lesson, I think, to share, even though you said it in passing right before you drink your water. Everyone is always figuring it all out. That's something that, as I'm mentoring the people that work with me, like, my younger staff specifically. I'll spend a lot of time with them and just say, hey, just so you know, we're all just making this up. Everybody's just making this crap up. And I'll, depending on the person, I'll share with them, like, before I go do a speech. If I'm nervous, I'm like, this is what it feels like, so that you don't think I have it all together. I'm pretty open about not having it all together, but I'd rather know somebody doesn't have it all together, but still goes for it. Like, still tries, still is dedicated to developing themselves, because I just don't think you can be prepared for life perfectly. So we took the word perfect out of our allowed vocabulary in Ariel, because there is no such thing as perfect. And so how can we do the absolute best? Go learn everything we possibly can. Preparedness is huge, but just because you went to school doesn't mean you can handle a pandemic plus your job. Like, you have to be able to train yourself to learn on the go. So I love that. I love that. Some of the, G-Force is all force for good entrepreneurs, and the common denominators that I'm finding are people have wanted this purpose their whole life. You feel like you have to trade in your purpose just so you can make money. And I refuse to believe that. And you don't make money on the backs of, like, manipulating something, because that's worse than anything.
Yeah.
You never take advantage of a situation, but how can I, just in the development of my business and my operations, change the world? And normally it's just these little tiny tweaks. By taking the time to make these little shifts in who your supplier is, and where your product is sourced from, and how you integrate your beliefs into what you do with your money, and how you can let your buyers be part of that. And so there's all kind of things. You can't do them all at once. Most of the time, you normally have to stabilize the company, like by doing one. Okay, this year we're going to sponsor an orphan for every house that we sell. And over that, after we've built out our systems and we know we can actually be a successful company, then we're going to be really picky about our products and make sure they're all sustainably sourced, for example. And then you can go as far to say, I'm only hiring ex-convicts and giving them job opportunities to build my houses. You can go really far down the rabbit hole, but I guarantee you, trying to be a force for good will be harder, but it's totally worth it. And it comes back to you in a way that you can't ever, you can't spend the money for it. So in my real estate development company, because we are so intentional with the kind of house that we even build back in a neighborhood, like, it's got to be historically contributing, it's got to really fit in, and we've got to really be a blessing to the person who sold it to us. Like, all of our filters has got to bless the community, it's got to bless the buyer. All the stuff that we do, we spend way more money. Everybody's like, you're dumb for putting this level of stuff in your houses. Like, why are you doing that? You don't have to. Just build a box and it will sell. And I'm like,
they're gorgeous, by the way.
The
houses are,
Well, we've had people that when they are moving out of a neighborhood, they say, we're only selling to Ariel. You're only selling to Ariel because you're the only one that gives a crap about our neighborhood. And we loved this neighborhood. We have to leave for blah, 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 but continue to be a blessing. And so it's been amazing how even something like that, you'll get more opportunities by sticking to your values. So what do you see are the blessings in disguise right now?
Being forced to take a reprieve and take a deep breath and look at things and assess them and kind of abide in Christ, but to reorient my life around what matters and to recognize how overwhelm manifests itself in my life and in my failings, and how I can take action to rectify those situations. Just new, fresh perspectives, to be honest.
So you gave us one exercise earlier, which is, write down 300 things that you want and see what happens. Do you have any other practical exercises that people can do to level up their lives during this time?
In terms of I'm really a hustler too. So I love when you're talking about sleeping in your car, I was like, this is awesome. That is the juice. So protecting that entrepreneurial mojo. So I was interviewing the TRX founder, Randy Hetrick. I think it was Wednesday of this week. And he said that he has a concept of entrepreneurial mojo, which is that magic, that stuff that gets us excited. And one of the things he was sharing was that is really the mix of optimism with the hope of what's around the corner. So if you have an area of your life, whether it's consumer debt, or I don't know whatever that area is for you. Maybe it's your health, right? And you know you've been putting it off. First, you just have to snap out of it. We've been stuck inside, so it's easy to just be like, oh, another month will go by. I'm going to finish this series on Netflix. Just snap out of it. The next thing, ask yourself, can I just go for a walk? That's what I've been telling myself. I'm a fit guy. I'm in shape, but all right, you need to go take a walk, John, because some days it'll be 9 o'clock and I hadn't worked out yet. You have to go make yourself do the thing and start small. Can I just? And if you're getting into working out, then can I just do 1 push-up? Can I do 10 jumping jacks? Can I just? Yeah.
That's good.
That's going to drive everything.
Can I just blah, blah, blah. I like that. I'm stealing it. Love it. That's so good. Okay. Last question. How can people be a force for good during this time? We've got a lot of people feeling hopeless, feeling useless, stuck at home. I lost this, I lost that. I'm watching Netflix, I'm gaining weight, whatever it is. How can they step up and actually be a force for good in this world right now?
Number one thing is to get Netflix and watch Tiger King. That's the number one thing. After you do that, don't do that. If you haven't, just skip it. Yeah, I would say realize that it's your turn now. You're needed. It's not optional, and you don't have to think about yourself anymore. Like, you don't have to be like, I'm not ready. I'm not this. It's not about you. So recognizing that you have certain gifts and unique abilities, and you have something to contribute, and your voice matters. And that if you don't step up now, like Brene Brown has an awesome quote, and it was actually on her Netflix special. As far as I know, I didn't watch it, but it's like, she says, you don't want to get to the end of your life and ask yourself on your deathbed, what if I had really shown up? What if I had really shown up? What then? Like, we can get through our lives like kind of in our own shell and protect ourselves and make our money and build our little nest and live in it and look at the outside world and moralize and pontificate with our spouse until the day we die and not really do anything. Or we can go out and take action and realize that it was our turn and we were called. Like, don't get to the end of your life and realize, oh, what if I had shown up? And I don't care what age you are, even if you're in your 60s, your 70s, you still have time. So make the most of it.
Oh, I love that. I heard one the other day, and I'm probably going to botch it too, but you didn't botch it. That was so good. It was, on your deathbed, the only thing getting buried with you are the ghosts of what you never went after.
Ugh. Not good.
Ghosts of the dreams. That was it. The ghosts of the dreams you never went after. Those are the only thing that will be buried with you. This is all going to end eventually, and not to be morbid about it, so go for it.
Yeah.
Go create the change you want to see. Go be the change you want to see. John, it was amazing having you on today. Thank you so much. I'm going to go do all my new exercises that I learned today. How do our listeners follow you? How can people stay in touch and listen to more from you?
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, Britnie. It's been awesome spending some time with you guys. I appreciate you listening to this amazing conversation. Just a couple words before we go. I want to say, remember, obviously, keep your head up. There is a story for you. Lay the trauma down and, move forward with your life. You got to enjoy it. Keyword joy. The main thing I would say after this, if you want to hear interviews with people from Dave Ramsey's team of Ramsey personalities, I just interviewed a guy, Anthony O'Neill. He's got a popular YouTube channel. I'm interviewing people, leaders in finance like him. I'm interviewing leading entrepreneurs like the founder of TRX, Randy Hetrick, many others. And also Jason Khalipa, CrossFit world champion, just interviewed him. If you have interest in hearing conversations with people like this, and Britnie as well, she was on, go ahead and head over to Spotify or your favorite music streaming platform, whether it's Pandora, Spotify, iTunes, podcast, whatever. And it's Heart Healthy Hustle Show, 3 words. So it's like Cheerios with hustle at the end of it. Heart Healthy Hustle Show. Guys, go ahead. Make sure to share this interview, and also if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe, and send Britnie messages of how these talks have been changing your life, and let her know, because she puts a lot of time and work into these, I'm sure, and she would definitely appreciate it. And go ahead and smash the thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, John.